Okay. So today was a historic day. It's not only the day after Yom Yerushalayim, but it was the day that the U.S. Embassy opened up in Jerusalem. And we can anticipate that other states and countries will follow in suit. Guatemala has also already followed, and I think Romania or one of the other Eastern European countries is following suit. So this got me into a Yerushalayim mood. And so I cracked open an old sefer of mine called Hatakufa HaGedola. Have you heard of that sefer? From Rabbi Menachem Mendel Kasher. Rabbi Menachem Kasher is famous for his series of commentary called Torah Shalema, which is a classic work, which is like an anthology work of so many different commentaries on Chumash, multiple volumes. It's really an amazing accomplishment. It's gone back into publication, but it's still not easy to get a hold of. Hatkufa HaGedola is what Rav Kasher published in 1972, shortly after just a few years after the Milchemet Sheishet Hayamim, the Six-Day War, and the ramifications of the retaking of Jerusalem. And what caught my eye was something very interesting, is that he has a whole essay on the return of the 10 tribes. As we become messianic and we think about kibbutz golios as Israel becomes settled, here we are 51 years later, and we're still talking about the same subjects, but it's a tremendous step that happened 50 years after we regained Yerushalayim, now to see the major power of the world recognize it as the capital of Israel. So the essay really does not have much to do with Yerushalayim or Eretz Yisrael. But the reason why it got started was because a direct result of something that an unnamed rabbi had written right after Milchemet Sheishet Hayamim, right after the Six-Day War. And what he wrote was essentially, basically, as the kids say, meh, what does it mean? What is the Six-Day War? If anything, we should be expecting great miracles to happen when it's time for the Geula, not something that is just an operation based on Sahel. Okay, that was the attitude of this rabbi that Rav Kasher felt he needed to respond to. And this is what, he got a letter from a fellow named Isaac Rappaport, who was living in Brooklyn, and said, this text from this rabbi. It must have been a pretty famous text. I could not track it down. I don't know which rabbi said this. But apparently this was what was circulating to try and burst the bubble in the great sense of fervor and excitement about the Six-Day War. So Rav Kasher quotes the statement of this unnamed rabbi as follows. I don't know whether it was the Satmar Rebbe. I don't know whether it was some other non- or anti-Zionist, but let's see what he writes. V'zel Shono shel harav hanal, source number 1. Ki ha'emes shehayeshuos v'hachasodim shehayu lanu ba'achrona lo haya bazeh hechrech hametzius shetihiyena b'derech sheba'u v'al yedei osam hagormim hashonim she'al yodam na'asu ha'pu'ulos hama'asiyos shera'inu. He says the truth is that all of the Yeshua and all of the kindness that Hashem has shown us, grant you that these are miraculous, wonderful things that Hashem has done for us through allowing us to win the Six-Day War in 6 days and take back large pieces of Eretz Yisrael. But they didn't need to happen in the way that they happened, on such a mundane level. Lefishanu ma'aminim emuna shalema umitzapim sheyiskaimu hadvarim Kifi shenemru al yedei hadrat vazal bipirosho al harambam. He says, because we believe with a complete faith, and we are hoping for the time when these words will come true. What words do we believe in completely and look forward to come true? The words of the Radvaz's commentary on the Rambam, which is a strange thing to say that we believe it with full belief. So, what did the Radvaz write? De b'nei Reuven asidim lavo, v'lasos milchamos lifnei bo melech hamashiach ad kan lashona. The Radvaz says in his commentary to the Rambam, which we'll see in just a moment, he says that, you know how Eretz Yisrael will become liberated and belong to the Jews again? The lost tribe of Ruvain are going to be fierce warriors, and they're going to show up one day. All of a sudden, a whole tribe of Reubenites are going to show up, and they're going to form a huge, powerful army, and they will defeat all of our enemies. And that's really what's supposed to happen. What's happened up until now, that's not the real Geula. We're thankful for it. We got some good stuff, but that's not the real Geula that we're hoping to be able to witness in the future. Radvaz zal haya migdolei haposkim va'onesomchim al dvarav b'harbe halachos lema'aseh. He was one of the great poskim, the Radvaz, who lives, I think, in the 17th century, and we rely upon him in many halachos lema'aseh. V'chov aleinu lahamin b'dvarav u'dvarim elu omer gam hagroz al b'pirusho al shir hashirim. The Radvaz was a great posek, and we have to trust him, and that he knows what he's talking about. And the Vilna Gaon said the same thing in his commentary to Shir HaShirim, that the great redemption will happen because a great army will form from one of the lost tribes, and they will bring the redemption. Now, before we go any further in this letter that this rabbi has written, which Radvaz and which Rambam is he referring to? Source number 5 says, it's Rambam in Hilchos Sanhedrin. And the Rambam, without going into too much detail, is talking about the laws of smicha, of all things. We know that there's a principle of smicha. I have smicha. My writ is on my wall in my office. But it's a fake. It's a forgery. It's not real smicha, even though it's got the signature of my Rosh Yeshiva on it. Because it's not real smicha. Right? You guys don't have real smicha. You're a bunch of frauds also.
You leaned on the...
You leaned on the behemoth, yeah. Right, the question is which behemoth. Right, so so what do I mean? That real smicha, as it's referred to in the Gemara, could only be given in Eretz Yisrael from someone who had smicha from a previous generation. And nowadays we don't have smicha anymore. And so the Rambam really undertakes the question, how will smicha be restored in the times of Mashiach? That's really the question. And so the Rambam comes to the conclusion that it's possible to restore smicha even even when the chain of smicha was broken, as long as all of the Gedolei Yisrael are gathered in Eretz Yisrael, and by consensus they all agree that it's time to restore smicha. The Rambam is of the opinion that smicha can be restored. That's essentially the words of the Rambam. There's a lot of controversy in the Rambam's words, but as it pertains to our discussion today, the Radvaz comes to take some small issue with the Rambam. And in source number 6, I'm just coming into the middle of the Radvaz, he says, Umi yitain ve'eda. He says, if only I'd be able to know about this firsthand, but we have a tradition, Shaharei Eliyahu Bolifnei HaMashiach, Kimavor Biksuvim, Uvedivrei Razal, that Eliyahu Hanavi is coming to herald the coming of Mashiach. And we know that Eliyahu Lomes, he never died, and Vaharehu Samuch V'yismoch Acherim Lifnei Bo HaMashiach. And he's the one who can continue the chain. In other words, you don't need the Rambam solution to solve the problem, because Eliyahu Hanavi could continue the unbroken chain. And then he says something else. And then he says, Visu de b'nei Reuven asidim lavo velasos milchamos lifnei bo melech hamashiach. He says, and furthermore, there's some source, which he doesn't say where he knows this from, that the tribe of Reuven will come and make great wars, apocalyptic wars, before Mashiach comes. Uman leimalan shelo yihye bohen samuch mipi samuch v'hu yismoch acherim. And someone in that army, in the Reubenite army, will have been part of that unbroken chain of smicha, and he'll provide smicha and continue the unbroken chain. Visu, and I'll tell you even more, Sha'amru b'midrasho shamashiach yizkala b'galil v'yachzer v'yizkaseh, uman leimalan shel yismoch beistin bizman sheyizkala batechila. So he says, and furthermore, Mashiach, and I'm not sure if I understand what this means, is that Mashiach will be revealed and then will be concealed. And perhaps in his revealed state, he will have received smicha and given smicha to others, and then he'll be concealed over periods of great time, and those who have received smicha in this covert chain will reemerge with the reemergence of Mashiach. Perhaps that's what the Radbaz means. The point is that what we see from here is that one of the solutions that the Radbaz suggests is from this Reubenite army. And that's what this rabbi, this unnamed rabbi, is suggesting is what's going to happen. So yeah, Tzahal saved us in the Six-Day War. That's not the real deal, man. That's not really it. That's not what we're looking forward to. Now, the question is, where does the Radbaz get this from? So Rav Kasher, this is a very long essay, which I haven't copied for you in its completeness. Rav Kasher says it's based on the Zohar. This quotes passages in Aramaic from the Zohar that tells us that Shevet Ruvain are mighty warriors, and they will come and form this army. That's really where it comes from. But let's go on into this letter in source number 1, again published in Hatkufa Hagdola. He says, Im nitbonein nivakeach she'en hadvarim rechokim ilahavinam, afilu b'mitziyah shalanu. He says, let's think about this for a second. What the Radbaz is suggesting is that all of a sudden, out of nowhere, a whole group of thousands of people, of thousands of lost Jews, will all of a sudden appear and say, we're here, we're your brethren, we're your long-lost brethren, and now we've come back. He says, if you think about it, says this rabbi, and he says this in 1967, it's not so hard to imagine. He says, "Neta'er la'atzmeinu im haya ba b'shnas reish nun echad migdolei haTorah." Let's say in the year 250. Really, what he means is 5250. You know what year that is on the English calendar? I'll save you the math. It's 1490. Let's say someone would come to us in the year 1490, and they would say to us, "V'omer sheka'avor shanatayim yamim yitgaleh chelek tevel chadash asher b'merutzat hashanim titkaber hashba'at darei u'mahagrei oto chelek bilti noda ad she'yavchu lemoshlim kimat kol ha'olam." Someone would come and tell us that a bunch of scraggly travelers in 2 years are going to discover an entire hemisphere of the planet that we had never known even existed, and that new hemisphere will be the world superpower and will dominate entire civilization. If someone were to come to us in 1490 and tell us that, what would we think? We think, well, you're nuts. What are you talking about? Right? Vadai shechalashe emunah hayu lelo safek misarvim la'amin l'chizayon kazeh. There's no question that people would have a tough time believing this. Ulam acharei shenitgalta America v'havcha leba'alat ha'hashpa'ah ha'machriya ba'olam ro'im yoshvei tevel davar misug zeh kitiv'i. And yet, over the course of a half of a millennium, we see that the United States has become a superpower, and it's not hard in retrospect to see how this was not some pipe dream. It really actually took place. Legabeinu hama'aminim, he says, when we talk about us, we people of faith, harei dvarim haksuvim ba'poiskim shiririm uverurim ba'amitu yusam yoser mima she'anu roim be'eineinu. When we read what a posek says, no matter how far-fetched it may sound, we of great faith in the Gedolim see it as something as clear as day. V'anu ma'aminim b'divrei hadradva zal sheyavo me'aseres hashvatim lifnei bo hamashiach v'ilochamu v'yimshalu achar kach al kol ha'olam b'yeter tokef midarchei shilton America. That a segment of the 10 tribes of Israel will all of a sudden re-emerge. They will come to Eretz Yisrael, and they will be so powerful that they will dominate the entire known civilization even more than America. We believe that this is what will happen because we have a great poskim like the Radbaz telling us that this is what will happen. Ach kemuvan shebasis shilton yemei hamashiach lo yeh be'emtzaut u'v'drachim politiyim regilim. But we have to also appreciate that the Messianic age will not arise through prosaic political means. Something miraculous is going to have to happen. So whatever is going to happen such that there'll be a complete upheaval of society. Va'anu ma'aminim. By the way, he's making a lot of assumptions that are very objectionable. Would you agree? Or everyone okay with what he's saying so far? Well, let's just finish the essay. V'anu ma'aminim shebe'im hayinu zochim ve'hahitpatchuyot haklaliyot be'inyani Eretz Yisrael hayu na'asim b'derech shekivinu al yedei milchemet aseret hashvatim u'cha'amor. We also believe that if we were zoiche to see all of the circumstances unfold in Eretz Yisrael, to see things happen as the way that we believe that they will happen through the emergence of the 10 lost tribes, lo haya ne'ereg afilu echad mi-Yisrael, then not even one Jew would lose his life. V'hayinu zochim l'kayim mitzvahs yishuv Eretz Yisrael b'kibush v'achar kach b'yishuv k'mo shekasav HaRamban zal. And we would merit to be able to fulfill the mitzvah of conquest and settlement of the land of Eretz Yisrael, just like the Jews did in the times of Yehoshua. Like the Ramban says in Sefer HaMitzvos, Nitztavinu anu lavo be'eretz v'lichbo she'arim u'lohoshiv bo shiftenu ad kam l'shano. V'lo kefi shenasu hadvarm b'derech hateva v'al pi hanhaga amasis b'derech hamedinut v'anu rochukim od mizeh. That is the conclusion of his statement. He says, the way things are being done today politically and through wars where there is bloodshed and loss of life, he says that's not what we have not arrived. And that's not what is supposed to happen just yet. We are jumping the gun. So, of course, this is an anti-Zionist polemic, right? And Rav Kasher was presented with this argument and was asked to respond. Now, the truth of the matter is that the bulk of the argument, really as far as its anti-Zionist polemic, is very easy to deflect. Because Chazal and so many commentaries, I would refer you to the Sefer Eim Habanim Smecha, and so many other Sfarim that deal with what Geula really looks like in the pre-Messianic age. It's clear from Chazal that Geula can take place in multiple ways. It can either take place on a miraculous level, or it can take place on a tiv'i, on a natural level, based upon the deservedness of Klal Yisrael. So anyone who says, we know for sure how Geula is going to take place, when someone tells you that, I don't care how long his beard is, you run the other way. Because no one knows. And the Rambam even writes this. Beferish in Hilchos Malachim, he says, all of these midrashim, there is no way to understand what is meant to be taken literally and what is meant to be taken metaphorically. So the audacity of this Rav to make such a statement that because the Radbaz said it, as one possibility is how smicha will continue within Klal Yisrael, then it must for sure be that that's what's going to happen, and we have emunah shalema that that's what's going to be, and anything else that we see unfolding before our eyes is not the real deal because of what the Radbaz said incidentally as one answer for how smicha will continue in Klal Yisrael, is just absurd. When you think about contextually what this person is saying, it's absolutely absurd. And it is, of course, just another example of how people who are very, very frum and have tremendous emunah could also have cognitive dissonance and deny the events that are unfolding before their eyes. Just like, imagine someone from the Neturei Karta would say, what happened today, right? They would say, well, it's all Maisa Sutton, that Donald Trump, opened up the embassy in Jerusalem, and it's really, because you see that a Galach, said a prayer, so it must be a Maisa Sutton, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? So we've become accustomed to this kind of silliness, and anyone who has half a brain knows to easily deflect these things. But what's fascinating is Rav Kasher does not dismiss it. He says, let's talk about this on a halachic and hashkafic level. You're telling me that it's clear that the Aseres Hashvatim, the 10 tribes that were exiled by Sancheriv towards the end of the First Temple period, are for sure coming back, and they're going to form the Geula. They're going to be the new army that's going to be responsible for the Geula. Let's talk about that for a second and find out how clear-cut that is or is not. And so he goes for the rest of his essay and talks about the issues involving the Aseres Hashvatim. And the first stop, therefore, that we have to look at is a Mishnah in Maseches Sanhedrin in Perek Chelek. And here, the Mishnah states, source number 2, Aseres Hashvatim Einam Asidin Lachzor, Shenemar Vayashlichem El Eretz Acheres Kayom Hazeh. The 10 tribes will never return. How do we know this? Because it says in Parshas Ha'azinu that God has sent them to another land like this day. And what does like this day mean? Ma hayom holech ve'eno chozer, af heim holchim ve'enon chozrin, divrei Rabbi Akiva. Just like today will go and never return, so too when the 10 tribes were exiled, they were never to return. This is the opinion of Rabbi Akiva. And Rabbi Akiva takes a lot of heat for his Agadic interpretations. There are other places in Shas where Chazal are critical of Rabbi Akiva. They basically say, Rabbi Akiva, you're brilliant and you're responsible for all of Torah Shabbal Peh, but do us a favor, let someone else exposit on Agadata. You stick with halacha. Right? And this would be one of those examples, because it's tragic what Rabbi Akiva is suggesting, right? Isn't it? The 10 tribes will be lost forever. Okay, but Rabbi Eliezer Omer, Kayom Hazeh, Ma Yom Ma'afilu Meir, Afeser Sashvatim, Sha'afelu Lahen, Kachasida Laha'ir Lahem. And Rabbi Eliezer disagrees. Rabbi Eliezer says that, no, Kayom Hazeh means that they are just like any day of the year, that just like a day starts with darkness and then ends with light, Vayhi Erev, Vayhi Voker. So too, the 10 tribes have had their period of darkness, but they will be illuminated again, and they will come back, and they will rejoin the Jewish people. Rashi says that the Aseret Hashvatim that we're referring to are the tribes that Sancheriv exiled, and as it says in Sefer Melachim, he placed them in specific cities or city-states that are Chalach, Chavor, Nahar Gozin, and Arei Madai. These are the places where he exiled them to. And Rashi says they'll never come back. Mimakom shegalu, the Hadiamrinam de Gemara de Yirmiyah hechaziran. The Gemara in Megillah says that Yirmiyahu brought them back after Sancheriv exiled them. No, lo shehechziran kulan ela miktsasam hechazir. It doesn't mean that he brought them all back. He only brought a small segment of them back. And as many of the Meforshim point out, they basically mixed in with Shevet Yehuda and Shevet Binyamin. And so therefore we don't really know. That's why to this day there's no evidence of anyone who is from any Shevet other than Shevet Yehuda or Shevet Levi if you're a Kayan or a Levi. And they say that some portion of Shevet Binyamin remains as well because they were adjacent to the Shevet of Yehuda. But for anyone who says that they're from another tribe, there's no evidence that there's any remnant of those other Shavatim. Now,
how does that pasuk come to the 10 Shvatim? Like the pasuk there is talking about a sinner. It could be anybody.
In Parshas Ha'azinu, it's Parshas Nitzavim, it talks about what's going to happen in the future.
Yeah, but it's talking about Parei Rosh V'lano, right? Right?
What's the first part of the pasuk? Baba vayashlicheim. You look it up. Look it up in Nitzavim, and you'll see. But
and then it continues.
Yeah, but at some point it transitions from Lashon Yachid to Lashon Rabim. At some point it transitions. So Chazal say that when it transitions into Lashon Rabim, it's referring to the exiling of the Aseret Hashvatim. I don't remember the exact text before.
Yeah, okay, it says, the pasuk before it is Vayichem Hashem Yalad Masam.
Vayitashem Hashem Yalad Masam Ba'afu
But
v'chema
it's all about
v'ketzev
these
gadol.
people. Right, that it's these
Right. Vayitashem means that God has already done it. So it's obviously a prophetic pasuk. It's talking about what's going to happen in the future as if it's already happened.
I was talking about like just some people that are bad, but specifically all.
So Chazal are learning that it refers to the Aseret Hashvatim. Does Rashi say it there on the pasuk?
He says, "Getarguma v'taltelinon v'chein inanim noichem me'alo ad masam."
Okay.
He quotes pasuk in Yirmiyahu.
Okay. I just want to point out something else that Rav Kasher observes, and this is part of his essay. The Rambam in his commentary to Perek Chelek, which is on this and it's on this set of Mishnayos that we find this machlokus as to whether the Aseret Hashvatim will return or not. The Rambam says explicitly, Kavar Hiskarno, and this is referring to whether who has a share in Olam Haba, who doesn't have a share in Olam Haba, whether Aseres HaShvatim will return, whether they will not return. So the Rambam writes, Kvar Hiskarnu Lecha Kama Pa'amim, Shekol Machlokes Shetihya Bein HaChachamim Ve'ina Tluya B'Ma'aseh, El Kevias Sevara Bilvad, Ein Makom Lifsok Halacha Ke'echad Mehem. I've already said this many times, that whenever Chazal have a debate about something that has no practical ramifications, then it is not appropriate to say, we paskin like so-and-so. This is a very, very powerful statement, and it needs to be taken in its proper context. Because, what defines an apikoros? What if someone holds like a minority opinion in an agadata in Chazal? Right? So this is a much longer discussion, perhaps for another shir. But the Rambam clearly holds that there's no such thing as saying we paskin like one deya in an agadata that has no halachic ramifications. And this is one, and Rambam is basically saying that every machlokus that appears in Perek Chelek is not halacha l'maisa. So you can't say that we paskin like Rabbi Akiva or Rabbi Eliezer because there's no nafkamina. And this is, in itself, Rav Kasher points out, is controversial because it is halacha l'maisa. First of all, if we knew to paskin like Rabbi Akiva, then there would be no basis for the Radbaz to say that we have to wait for Shevet Ruvain to come back. But beyond that, and this is something fascinating, it seems like there are a variety of midrashim that paskin like Rabbi Eliezer. In other words, that they definitively say that there will be a return of the Aseres HaShvatim. For example, the Yerushalmi seems to say that just like Hashem has exiled the 10 tribes to 3 different places somewhere in the Middle East, right? So, Ucheshehin Chosrin, Hin Chosrin Mishalosh Galuyos, that when they return, they will come back from 3 different exiles. There's another medrash in Bamidbar Rabbah that when Hashem decreed that he would, after the Chet HaMeraglim, that he would destroy the Jewish people and that he would make Moshe into a mighty nation, the medrash says that even though God eventually forgave the Jewish people, he ultimately fulfilled his promise to Moshe and made him have a huge nation of children that actually are separate from the Jewish people. In other words, from either Gershom or Eliezer, there are a huge populace of people, and they will eventually come back, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu will bring them back. And v'hagaluyos boyim imohem v'hashvatim shem nesunim lifnim in sambatchim v'shulfim in hari choshech hem yiskansim uboyim liYerushalayim. That when it's time for kibbutz galuyos, all of Moshe Rabbeinu's descendants will come back, and additionally, all of the lost tribes will come from on the other side of the Sambatyon River where they were exiled, and they will come back as well. The Yalkut Shimoni quotes an older medrash which says the same thing. But now let's take a look at something. So far, nothing is really halacha l'maisa, right? But let's take a look at something that is potentially halacha l'maisa. Source number 10. Amar Rav Yehuda, Amar Rav Asi, Obed kochavim shekidesh bizman hazeh chosheshin l'kidushin, Shema me aseres hashvatim hu. That if a Gentile presents kiddushin to a woman today, says the Gemara, we require her to get a get l'chumra, because maybe he's from one of the 10 lost tribes. Mm-hmm. Now we don't paskin this way. I want to make sure that you understand that the conclusion of the Gemara is not that way. And instead of going through line by line in the Gemara, take a look at the Meiri, who gives a beautiful synopsis of the Gemara step by step in very simple Hebrew. The Meiri states in source number 11, Goy shekidesh bisman hazeh ein chosheshin lekidushav lomar shema Yisrael hu, right? V'shema tomar lachu shema hu me'aseres hashvatim shegolu b'mei san cheriv shenishtamdu harbei mehem v'nitzmeu. He says, if a goy comes along and presents kiddushin to a woman, he says, Arayat mekudeshesli, right, and gives her a ring, there's no kiddushin at all, l'chumra at all. She doesn't need a get, right? And the reason is because we don't suspect, well, maybe he's a crypto Jew or something like that. We also don't suspect that he's from one of the 10 tribes. And why is that? Because kol de parish meruba parish. Because even though it's true that in many different nations, like in India and in South America, there are probably Jews who became conversos or they became assimilated from the 10 tribes, nonetheless, we assume that kol de parish meruba kaparish, that anyone who comes from a certain nation has come from the majority. V'shema tomar beduchta tikvi gon chala v'chavor v'chavroteha ma'ika l'meina deharuba ninu. So what are you going to say if a woman finds herself in those lands where Sancheriv exiled the Jews? So it's, in those lands, we have reason to believe that there may even be a majority of the indigenous population which were part of the 10 tribes. So Harei mikol makom nachrios nasu v'shifr v'nachris v'lada kamoha. You still don't have to worry, because any Jewish man who was exiled by Sancheriv invariably married a non-Jewish woman, and we go after matrilineal descent, so their children would be non-Jewish. V'shema tomar shema min habanosu sheba hagoy alehem. So maybe you'll argue, this is all going through the Shaklavitari of the Gemara, maybe you'll argue that what about the Jewish women who were exiled in the times of Sancheriv? Maybe they assimilated by marrying Gentile men, and they had Jewish children. So what about if you could trace back a matrilineal line going all the way back to Sancheriv? Don't you have to worry about maybe there's a Jewish person, a Jewish man? He says, Kabbalah haisa biyadam al osan habano shagalu ba'osa sha'a shehein hecheliu es atzman ad sha'amdu benivol shelo yehi shum adam kofetz aleihem. V'hu inyan itztaru itztaru. So the Gemara gives an answer that the women who were exiled in the times of Sancheriv, itztaru itztaru, which is a strange phrase, but what does it mean? It means they made themselves ugly. In other words, they sort of, made themselves sick, literally is what the Meiri says, to the point where they were so disabled physically that no one wanted to marry them. And v'yesh meforshim sheshasu kos shel ikarin shelo le'leid mehem. Some say that it's not that they made themselves sick, that no one would want to marry them, but even those who got married drank a potion that would render them infertile so that they would not be able to have children. V'yesh meforshim shenivka beis kalitasam li'inui haderech ad shelo hayu re'uyos liklotu lihisaber. And some say that it was the torturous journey of exile from Eretz Yisrael to these foreign lands that caused them to physically not be able to bear children anymore because their uteruses burst or whatever it is. That's what he's suggesting. V'lo od elasher kabbalah haisa biyadam shekol osam shenitmeu bahem nitmeu legamrei anashim v'nashim ad shebeistin sheba'oso hador asaum kegoyim gemurim shlo liyosam bichlal dine Yisrael klal. And furthermore, there was such a widespread assimilation that took place as soon as Sancheriv exiled them, that the rabbis of that generation immediately made a takana and declared definitively everyone that was exiled by Sancheriv has the status of a Gentile. So it's almost like it was by edict of Sanhedrin that they have the status of Goyim.
Can they do that?
I guess so. And this is, by the way, this is what Shmuel says in the last line. Amar le lo zazu misham ad sha'asoum ovdei kochavim gemurim shenemar bashem bagdu kibonim zorim yaladu. Based on a pasuk, says Shmuel, they made a takana that they have the status of complete heathens. They are no longer part of the Jewish people. So even if, genetically, from a pedigree standpoint, you could trace someone back all the way back to one of Sancheriv's initial exiles. Nonetheless, they were decreed upon to have the status of goyim, and therefore you don't have to even be concerned that there's a chashash of a suffix that perhaps one of them is Jewish, and therefore you don't have to be choshesh for the kiddushin at all. Okay, that's the maskan of the Gemara. So Rav Kasher just points out that there is potentially a stake here. There's something at stake in the event of whether or not the Rabbi Akiva is right or Rabbi Eliezer is right. In other words, it depends on how you subscribe to the Gemara. According to Rabbi Eliezer, if they're never coming back, so then, it could be that Shmuel is subscribing to Rabbi Eliezer, that they decreed that they're completely Gentile and therefore they're never coming back. I'm sorry, to Rabbi Akiva, and they're never coming back. And that's the reason why you don't have to be Choshesh for Kiddushin. But according to Rabbi Eliezer, if they are coming back, then Shmuel, you can't say like Shmuel. And so there is potentially something at stake, halachically, in this machlokas between Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Akiva, whether or not you have to be choshesh that when a woman gets married from a place, by a man who comes from one of these places where Sancheirav exiled the Jews, maybe he's taka a yid, maybe she should need a get. So the point is that it's not so pashut. So Rav Kasher presents us with a rishon that I had never heard of before. Maybe I did, but I forgot. And I want to go to that source now. It's on source number 14, on page 4. This was reprinted from a Ksav Yad sometime either in the 19th or 20th century. So it's a relatively recent text, like the Meiri, where we always knew this person existed because he was quoted in Sifrei Rishonim, but we didn't have his Iker commentary. You know that about the Meiri. The Meiri was known for centuries because he was quoted by so many other Rishonim, but we didn't have the full Beis HaBechira, the full commentary of Meiri on Shas, until sometime the late 19th or early 20th century, right? And so the same thing is a lot of Rishonim were in that boat through the benefits of the Cairo Geniza and other sources. We were able to find old manuscripts and restore so much medieval Torah to Klal Yisrael that are sitting on the Beis Medrash bookshelves today. So one of them is Harav David Bonfil, who is a Talmud Muvhak of the Ramban, and he wrote a commentary on Sanhedrin, and there's a sefer called Sanhedrei Gedola, published by Rabbi Yaakov Lipschitz some 50 years ago, which contains in it a number of kisvei yad of Rishonim on Maseches Sanhedrin. So this is one of the kisvei yad. So he has this commentary on the idea of the Aseres HaShvatim that we should look at together. He says, Zeh sheshaninu ba'aseres HaShvatim she'enan asidim lachzor. Rabbi Akiva's contention that the 10 tribes will never return, he says, you have to understand that al oso hador hara bilvad amru, shemesu mitoch rish'an velo asu tshuva. He says Rabbi Akiva is not saying that there will never be a restoration of the 10 tribes. As you'll see in a moment, he can't say that. He's going to prove that. It's only referring to the initial generation that Sancheirav exiled. That's what Rabbi Eliezer was referring to, that they never would return because they didn't do tshuva. The reason why they were exiled, according to the Psukim, and as he explains, Kmo she'amru aleim shesipru bigenusa shel Eretz Yisrael, shebirtzon nafsham galu mimenu v'saru me'acharei Hashem. It's not like the image that sometimes we have about the 10 tribes, that they were uprooted from their homes and they were violently taken away as captives and exiled. He says, Chazal tell us, at least one version of Chazal, is that they voluntarily left because they had enough of being part of the Jewish people. They said, oh, Sancheirav, you've saved us. Put us somewhere, anywhere except here in Israel. It's almost like those who make, the Yordim. It's not like they were thrown out of Eretz Yisrael. They chose to leave. And they spoke Lashon Hara about Eretz Yisrael. Uchesha amru einan atidin lachzor harehu dome kemo im hayinu omrim she'ein lahem chelek leolam haba. And what it means when they say they're never coming back, it's like a Maimer Chazal that says that the 10 tribes do not have a portion in the world to come. Uchemosha amru bibraitim mifarash she'ein lahem chelek leolam haba. That's all it means. V'chein nir'eh mimachlukuto shel Rebbe she'omar boyin hein la'olam haba she'nemar v'haya bayom hahu yitaka b'shofar gadol. And he says that's the machlokas between Rebbe and another Tana as to whether the 10 tribes will have a merit in the world, have a portion in the world to come. It's the same machlokas between Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Akiva, not referring to the descendants of the 10 tribes who are still part of the Jewish people, but rather referring to that generation itself. Ela she'amru ein atidin lachzor kelashon hamidrash shedarshu mahayom holech ve'eino chozer afhem holchim v'chulei. And the reason why the Mishnah says it in the way that it says it and doesn't rather instead refer to their portion in the world to come is because it's basing itself on a pasuk that talks about coming back. Okay? וכן עשו בעדס קורח שאמרו עליה שאינה עתידה לעלות מלשון הפסוק שהביאו עליה שממית ומחיה מוריד שאול ויועל. In the same way, Chazal, when they want to say that Adas Korach forfeit their share in the world to come, it says that they're never coming up. What does it mean they're never coming up? It means they're never getting a share in the world to come, and it's based on the pasuk that uses the verbiage of coming up, and that's really what Chazal mean. Ume'ata. Now, based on what I've just taught you, says Rav Bonfield, Eina Mishnah Hazot gozeret al zaram shehiyu ovdim me'avodas Hashem. This Mishnah, Rabbi Akiva is not condemning the descendants of the 10 tribes to never be Jews again. Ki bevadai shehiye lahem zera im ma'at ve'im harbei asher yedu'u et Hashem o shehiyu bahem anashim mu'atim ovdei Hashem. V'hem yihiyu la'amrav, v'hem yihiyu nidchei Yisrael asher ye'esof otam Hashem, v'gemiri delo kalu shivtaya. He says, you have to say that there are remnants in every single tribe of God-fearing people who still acknowledge their Jewishness, because we have a tradition that there will never be a complete loss of any of the 12 Shvatim. ובספר יחזקאל מזכיר את כולם ומחלק להם את הארץ ולא היה בישראל מי שחלק על זה חס ושלום. And my proof is from the pasuk in Yechezkel, which talks about the third temple. And in the times of the third temple, says Yechezkel, there will be a redivision of the land according to the 12 tribes. So if Eretz Yisrael is going to be divided among the 12 tribes, in the third temple period, there must be a restoration of all 12 tribes, including the 10 lost tribes. Ve'al elu amru ba'agada sheganzo otam hakadosh baruch hu begimel mikamot. And that's why the Medrash tells us, or the Agadata tells us, that Hashem hid away the 10 lost tribes in 3 separate places, like we saw previously in the Gemara. Echad lifnim min har Sambatyon, ve'echad la'acharei harei choshech, ve'echad bedufna shel Antiyucha. He says that God put them in 3 places. One on the other side of the Sambatyon River, the other group on the other side of the mountains of darkness. Almost sounds like the Hobbit. This J.J. Tolkien kind of the other side of the dark mountains. And then the third group is on the side of Antiochia, on one flank of this country called Antiochia, which could be Spain, it could be somewhere else. It could be Greece. It could be Greece also. Aval elu sha'amru aleihim shenitmeu bagoyim, heim osam shagalu bi'iyei madai, v'hinei arei madai yedu osein. He says, there's another Maimer Chazal that says that they completely assimilated. So which one is it? Are there Jews who still retain their Jewish identity, or did the 10 lost tribes completely assimilate? So he says to reconcile that, it's very simple. He says there are 3 places where are hidden away from the world, where Jews were still, they were completely exiled from the mainstream of Klal Yisrael, but they still retain their Jewish identity. And then there are other Jews, as part of the 10 tribes, who were sent to the cities of Madai, and they totally assimilated and lost all sense of Jewish identity. Ela shenitmu bahen va'avdu betochan va'aleim nemar va'avadetem bagoyim olu aseres hashvatim or elu perhaps it's a typo shegolu lemadai shelo ira lahem kamo shira begolus Yehuda sheyovdei Hashem begolusum v'lo nitmu bagoyim. This refers to, you will be lost among the nations, refers to that segment of the 10 tribes who totally assimilated. So the way that Rav Bonfield reconciles this, on the one hand, there will be a return of all of the 10 lost tribes. But on the other hand, it's true that there will be some segment of the 10 tribes that will be totally assimilated. He says, yesh v'yesh. The 3 places that Chazal identify that they were exiled to, they remained discreet, and they retained their Jewish identity. In the cities of Media, where they were exiled, totally assimilated, never to come back. V'chein ma she'amru b'yavamos, b'goy shekidesh v'lecho shema me'aseres hashvatim hu, v'amru degemiri denashi de'ahu dara itzdaruya itzdaru. He says, and similarly, when the Gemara in Yevamah says that if a Gentile presents Kiddushin to a woman, you don't have to worry. Or, why don't you have to worry that maybe he's from the 10 tribes? And so the Gemara says, we have a tradition that the Jewish women of the time were itzdaruye itzdaru, that they made themselves either ugly or their uteruses burst or whatever it is. Zehu ba'oto hador shenitma'u va'avdu bahen. That refers to the first generation, where they still retained at least some semblance of identity. Vadai shahaya ra'ui lachush likidushe hagoyim ba'otan ha'mekamot shayu mitzuyin im lo sha'asa hakadosh baruch hu neis v'nivka harechem kidei shelo yihiyeh hazera ki zera anoshim haba min hagoyim enu mazik sheyalda kemoha. He says that first generation still knew that they were Jewish, and some of them may have still observed halacha until the next generation assimilated. So there the Gemara has to say that those women of that generation who knew that they were still Jewish, if they received Kiddushin from a man, they wouldn't have to worry because they wouldn't have children because their uteruses burst. Uvechol zos einam omrim klum al oto hazera asher haya lahem shamarnu shehu ovdei Hashem v'lo al hayichidim shayu bahen shelo nitmu bagoyim shekol ro'eyam yakirum kihem zera bereich Hashem. But that Gemara is not referring to the places where Jews from the 10 tribes still retained a very strong sense of Jewish identity and knew that they were Jews. In other words, the Gemara, which says they totally assimilated, even in the first generation, didn't have Jewish children because their uteruses burst, is talking about the places where they totally eventually assimilated. But in places where people still maintain their Jewishness, let's say like the Ethiopian Jews, right? If Rav Bonfil is referring to them, because they were known already in the times in the 13th century, when this is being written, he says, or maybe this is the 14th, it's the 1300s, I believe, but he says, those people, you still have to worry about their Kiddushin. V'aleim nitnaveh Yirmiyahu v'lokachti etchem echad me'ir u'beiz me'mishpacha ve'eviu etchem tzion. And Yirmiyahu says about them, I'm going to bring you back to Zion. כי מפני שעשרת השבטים עבדו בגויים ולא נשארו כי מעט מהרבה כמו שאמרנו, על כן אמר עליהם אחד מעיר ושניים ממשפחה, כי אותה הפרשה למי שיודע לפרשה היא מיוחדת לעשרת השבטים. כי אמר שובה משובה ישראל אחר שאמר צדקה נפשה משובה ישראל מבגדה יהודה. So he basically says, in the remainder of that paragraph, he just says, look, if you know how to explain that whole parsha in Sefer Yirmiyah, you know for sure it's talking about the 10 tribes. Like Laser, you asked before, how do we know that pasuk is talking about the Zeres HaShvatim? He says, it's clear from that parsha in Yirmiyah it's talking about the Zeres HaShvatim. In the final paragraph he says, V'zehu shenitnaveh aleihem v'natati lachem ro'im kalbi v'ra'u etchem de'ah v'haskel. That it says, therefore, in the Navi, that I will give you the 10 lost tribes, I will give you shepherds and my sheepdog to guide you and let you understand what's going on. Shehizkir b'dvarav shelo yashuvu kulam, ela shemehem yashuvu yichidim litzion. Not that all of you will return, the Jews in captivity, but some Jews from the 10 lost tribes shall return. Avolo yashuv lahem melech rak shiu tachat hamelech asher yitein Hashem aleihem shirotam de'ah v'haskel. But that you won't return with your own leaders, but rather you'll become subservient to the ultimate shepherd of the Jewish people, the Messiah. V'David HaMashiach malach aleim ki amalchut shalahem tovad be'emet. He says, because whatever government or power that you bring with you, you 10 lost tribes from wherever you come from, that will eventually vanish and you'll fall under the leadership of the Mashiach. V'lamalchut nemar nafla v'lo tosifkum b'tulat Yisrael derech hapshat. Mikol makom b'chazaras aseres hashvatim lo chalak adam me'olam shemefurshu b'ktuvim k'mo she'amanu sham bezrat Hashem. But you have to say, and Rabbi Akiva must submit to this, that there will be a return of some of the Seres Hashvatim. So the machlokus, it turns out, between Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Eliezer, according to Rav David Bonfield, is referring only to those who were exiled to Media and completely assimilated. There, Rabbi Akiva says they're lost, they're never coming back. And Rabbi Eliezer says, no, perhaps there's still some Jewishness and something will happen that will arouse them. Maybe they might have remembered that my grandmother, like we know from so many stories from Mexico and in Latin America, that I know that my grandmother used to light candles every Friday night, so we know that they're from the Conversos, and maybe that's what will happen as well. That's what Rabbi Eliezer is maintaining. So this is the machlokus, but that there will be a return of the 10 tribes, that everyone has to submit. So essentially, what Rav Kasher is bringing from Rav Bonfiel is that, yes, it's true that there will be a return of the Aseres Hashvatim, but that's irrelevant to our whole contention about how the Geula is going to take place, and he still, is critical of that unnamed rabbi who said all of this. The Tiferes Yisrael, in his commentary to Maseches Sanhedrin, really says a very, very similar thing to Rav Bonfiel. But, you can take a look at it on your own just because we're running short on time. The last thing that I wanted to show you is something that Rav Kasher points out from the Eitz Yosef commentary, which is a late, it's a more recent commentary, probably from either the 18th or 19th century, printed in the Siddur Otzer HaTfilos. There's also an Eitz Yosef commentary in the Ein Yaakov. So the Eitz Yosef on the bracha of Tekah b'shofar gadol lecheruseinu. If you take a look, he says, Ulefi pshuto, you see where that little arrow is in source number 13. He says, Ulefi pshuto nir'eh shevakoshas gu'ula zu. When we say in the Shemona Esrei, Tekah b'shofar gadol lecheruseinu, blow the great shofar to declare our liberation. V'sanes lekabetz galuyoseinu, and lift up a banner to gather all of our exiles. The kabetzenu yachad me'arba kanfos haaretz, and gather us from all 4 corners of the earth. Just in case you forgot that bracha, we say that 3 times a day in the Shemona Esrei. I know it's sometimes easy to overlook. I'm certainly guilty of it because you say it by rote. When you think about it, it's an amazing bracha, right? You're asking Hashem to bring kibbutz golios, which we're actually witness to today. We're seeing kibbutz golios in action, right? So he says, Zu niskina al golus aseres hashvatim. So the Eitz Yosef says that this bracha was instituted as a prayer to bring back the 10 lost tribes. Lefi ha-mishnah b'Sanhedrin, aseres hashvatim einam asidim lachzor divrei Rabbi Akiva, Rabbi Eliezer Omer asidim lachzor. And he just cites briefly the machlokus between Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Eliezer whether the 10 lost tribes will come back. V'sham b'braisa lomad Rebbe mipasuk zeh shenemar bayom hahu yitaka b'shofar gadol uva'u ha'ovdim be'eretz Ashur. And Rebbe, siding with Rabbi Eliezer, says, of course the 10 tribes have to return. Of course they have a share in the world to come. How do I know? Because the pasuk says, bayom hahu yitaka b'shofar gadol. On that day, says the prophet, right, Prophet Malachi, right? On that day there will be a blowing of the great shofar. Uvahu ha'ovdim me'eretz Ashur. And all of those who were lost will come into the land of Assyria. V'anidachim me'eretz Mitzrayim. They will come from the land of Egypt. V'ishtachavu l'Hashem ba'ar hakodesh b'Yerushalayim. And they will come and worship God in Jerusalem. V'zeu ma she'omru kan b'zeh halashon tekah b'shofar gadol. V'sanes lekabetz galuyosenu me'rachok. When we ask Hashem to raise a banner to gather us all from all 4 corners of the earth, it's talking about these tribes who were exiled all over the world. And he says this goes according to the opinion, or Kamod Isa, that the pasuk says that all dwellers of the earth and all inhabitants of the world will see the banner raised up, and they will hear the huge shofar blowing, and they'll see it's time for kibbutz golios. And that's why the bracha says, gather us all together. V'lo yihya kamo shahaya b'bayis sheni she'olu lachatzaim. And therefore it will not be like it was in Bayis Sheni when only a small segment of the Jews in Bavel came back. And that's what we're davening for. We're davening for a return of the Aseres HaShvatim. Bottom line is that the way that Rav Bonfil and the Tiferes Yisrael learn, and really, essentially, the way that we're saying the bracha, according to the Eitz Yosef, is we do look forward. In other words, even Rabbi Akiva agrees that we look forward to a time of the regathering in of at least a segment of the 10 lost tribes, so that Klal Yisrael will once again be complete. Now, it's true. I think we're seeing this also. We see Bnei Menashe. We see, what do they call the Ethiopian Jews today? No, Bnei Menashe is from India and Asia. I forgot the word. But no, we don't use that term anymore. Yeah, but I forgot the term. But and then we're seeing Russians come back who may have also been from the Aseres 10 lost tribes, and you'll see people are reawakening in ways that we haven't seen historically in ever. And let's hope that this continues a trend of seeing the Geula unfold before our eyes even more rapidly than before.
So really, we really don't know. I mean, like the Timanim, the people from the east, as far as we really don't know. They may have been part of the 10 lost tribes, right?
I don't think so. I think the Sfaradim trace themselves back to the. They trace themselves from the times of Bayis Sheni. Anyone who was around in Israel in Bayis Sheni is assumed to be from Yehuda, or if they're Kohanim Levim, from Levi. So Sephardim trace themselves back to Bayis Sheni from the Churban Bayis Sheni. It's just that the two communities, there's a theory, although it's not clean, but there's a theory that the Jews from Eretz Yisrael went to Ashkenaz, went to northern Europe, to the Rhineland, and the Jews from Bavel went to Sfarad, went to Spain. And so that's how different minhagim developed. But it's probably not so clear-cut. Scholars still debate the issue. And then, of course, you have a small Italian community, which is where Judaism in Europe starts. And there were some Jews that were living in Italy even before Bayis Sheni. But it seems pretty clear that they too were the exiles of Nebuchadnezzar, not the exiles of Sancherib. So I don't think that the known Jews in the world today are, except for the Ethiopian Jews and the Bnei Menashe Jews and some other tribes in Africa, it's pretty clear that anyone who can trace themselves back to Sephardim or Ashkenazim or Teimanim is going back to Yehuda.
One other question about that: the 3 specific places where they were exiled. How do we know they did this? There were no Jews.
All right, so this has to be discussed further. One of the assumptions that this unnamed rabbi made is, look, if someone were to tell you in 1490 that a new piece of land on the other side of the world was going to be discovered that we've never heard of before, and all of a sudden, it's going to become the world superpower, you wouldn't believe them. The same thing could happen today. One of the reasons why that's ridiculous is because we have satellite photography, and we have telecommunications in the modern world. We know exactly where everyone lives, and the word is out to the entire world that Israel has its own country. If there were tribes of Jews on the other side of the Sambachon River, whatever that is, on the other side of the Dark Mountains, wherever that is, they would have pulled out their cell phones and made a call to the government.
Israeli-made cell phones.
Yeah, right, Israeli-made cell phones, and would have made sure that they would reconnect with the Jewish people by now. So this possibility that there are going to be, that, as Rav Bonfil, now if you're living in the 1300s, nothing's unreasonable. Right? So for him to suggest that this is what will happen is not unreasonable. But in today's world, to suggest that there are still going to be Jews who identify as Jews but have just not come forward into the Jewish community seems a little bit almost too
You
far-fetched
could
to
say that in
accept.
this day and age, nothing's unreasonable either.
Yeah, well, if it happens, if there's some cabal of hidden Jews somewhere and they're controlling the world, maybe I'll start reading the Protocols of the Elders of Zion again, Anyway, have a good night, everyone.